Hello friends, welcome back. My name is Mustafa and you are watching my tutorial. In this video we will learn about two-way data binding with ng model. Two-way data binding automatically synchronizes data between component and the view, or you can say data between model and the view. It enables us to establish bidirectional communication. In a simpler word, if I say two-way data binding is a combination of both property and the event binding. So what actually the property and event binding is, I have already created a video on that. I will give you link in the description below. I would recommend you to watch that video before proceeding. That will help you to understand this one in a much better way. Property binding is a one-way data binding techniques from component to view. And if you see, this is the syntax. For the property binding, we use square brackets. And this is name of the property that we will declare in the component. We will do a practical demo for the same as well. And event binding is also a one-way data binding, but this is one-way data binding from view to component, opposite of property binding. And for the event binding, we use parenthesis. Here, if you see in the property binding, we use square brackets, but in the event binding, we use parenthesis. And when you type something in the text box, this method will be called, and we will pass event.target.value, means value of this input control. If we put together, this is the syntax of property binding and this is the syntax of event binding. The two-way data binding, if you combine both of them, if you combine property binding as well as the event binding, that will become two-way data binding. As we know that property binding is from component to view and the event binding is from view to component. So if you put together, that will become two-way data binding. And here you can see that we are combining both the events together up to here. If you see this image, this is indicating property binding plus event binding. If you see the square brackets plus this parenthesis equal to two-way data binding. We can also achieve two-way data binding using ng model. That is the main focus of this video. So we will simply use ng model in the a square bracket and the parenthesis. We will use both the syntax, means syntax of the property and the event binding, and I will use ng model and name of the property that we will declare in the component. So to understand it better, let's flip to Visual Studio Code where we will see the practical example for the same. If you see this line of code, I have an input control that is of the type text box, and here I am using property binding. So what I am doing in the input control, I am binding value. In the value I am using property binding, and I am assigning a company name property that is declared here in the app component. You can see here, and it holds mytutorial.com. Save the changes, and you can see that whatever the value we have in this company name, that will be binded to this text box. We are also using interpolation here to display the same value. Save the changes and flip to browser, and here you can see that we are able to see mytutorial.com in the text box as well as in the browser. If I remove it from here, you can see that now text box will be empty. It proves that this property binding is one-way data binding from component to view. Now let me comment this code and uncomment this one. So what I am doing here in this text box, this is also an input control of the type text. Here I am using in this input control, I am using event binding. So what will happen when you type something on the text box, this method will be called, and from here you are passing event.target.value, means whatever is the value you are typing here, that value you are passing to this method. And if you see, this method is declared here in the app.component.ts. So whatever you type, that will be accepted here, and we are assigning the same value to this company component. And this company component value will be again displayed on the view using this interpolation. So save the changes and flip to browser. Here you can see that the moment I typed, we are able to see whatever we are typing in the text box. So here you can see that in the first example, in this example, I was passing data from component to view, but in the second example, I am passing data from view to component. So both are one-way data binding. This property binding is from component to view, and event binding is from view to component. Now let me comment this code and uncomment this one. If you see here, this is also the same code what we saw in this one. So but here what we are doing, here we have company name property that we have declared here in the app.component.ts. So instead of calling, this method and assigning the value over there, I'm directly using this company name property in the HTML, and I'm assigning this, event.target.value. So whatever you type in the text box, that will be assigned to this company name, and this value will be displayed here as well. So instead of doing the work in the component, you are doing the same work in the HTML. So this is the another way of doing the what we did here in the second line. Save the changes and flip to browser. And here you can see that as of now my tutorial is coming. This is coming because we already have mytutorial.com here assigned. But the moment I type, this will be erased. So whatever we type, that will be displayed here in the browser. Now we saw that how we can achieve same thing using a different approach. Let me comment this line of code as well and uncomment this one. Here if you see, I am combining property binding as well as the event binding. The one we saw here in the slide, this one. So before explaining this code, let's see the output. You can see that we are able to see mytutorial.com in the text box as well as in the browser. So how it is happening? It is happening because I am using property binding. So that's the reason we are able to see this mytutorial.com in the text box. And I am using interpolation as well. That's the reason we are able to see in the browser as well. Now, what will happen the moment I type something in the text box, this method will be called, and we will assign text box value to this company name, and this company name will be displayed again using the interpolation. Let's flip to browser and type something here. So I type 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can see that we are able to see the expected output. Here we are doing two-way data binding. The one way is this one. This is from component to view, and when we type something, we are passing data to component. Same task we can achieve using ng model as well. So let me comment this line of code and uncomment this one. So here you can see that I am using property binding and the event binding syntax. So if you see a square brackets as well as the parenthesis, I am using here, and I am using ng model, and name of the property that is in the app component.ts. So save the changes and flip to browser. You can see that we are able to see mytutorial.com in the text box as well as in the browser. Friends, here I would like to address that you need to import forms module, this forms module from Angular form. So come in the app.module.ts and import forms module and add that in the forms module array. If you will not add, you may get error something like this. Cannot bind ng model since it is not a known property of the input. So what happens when you come to browser and you don't see anything on the screen? Open the developer tool and come to console, and here you can see the error I have shown you here. So as of now I have already added forms module in the app module.ts, so I am not able to see any error. But if you don't add, you will get the error. I have only one input control and one property that is declared in the app.component.ts. So let's assume that I have multiple input control like 2, 3, and let's say 20, 25. What we will do, let's say we have the first name, last name, address, phone number, something like that. So do we need to create all the properties like that? Yes. One way is that we can create all the properties separately, or the other way is that we will create an object. So I will create like customer object, and here I will have first name and it will have some value, last name. So likewise I will create n number of properties as we need. So for accessing this first name and the last name in the app.component.html, I will copy customer. So I will do like customer dot first name. In the same way I will repeat it, customer dot last name. Also let me show this on the browser. So I will use interpolation and a BR. Make sure that app.component.ts and the HTML are saved. And flip to browser, and you can see that we are able to see Muhammad. In the last text box, you can see that I am not able to see anything because here I am using incorrect syntax. So what I will do, I will add one more property here called age, and I will use this property over there. Save the changes. Okay, so it is coming here 30 now. So I need to modify this one also. So it will be customer.age. Save the changes now and come to browser. You can see that we are able to see expected output. When I modify something here, you can see that both the text box are getting updated. This is because I am using same property here. So I need to use the last name. You also need to update this property here. Now save the changes and flip to browser. If you update now we are able to see that only first name property is getting updated. Same way, like if you want, you can create a class also where you will have some property like first name, last name, age, address, XYZ, and you can use that. I hope you learned something from this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much.